So good morning, my name is Chris Adam with Youth Pledge for Employers, and I'm delighted to be joined by Chris Graveling from the Grove, Cromer this morning. Hello, Chris.
Hi, hello.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for giving up your time this morning. And I guess my first sort of question has to be, please can you tell us a bit about the Grove at Cromer?
Yeah, okay. So the Grove, Cromer, it's we're a hotel in Cromer. It's a family business. It's been in the family for 86 years. It's 1936. Wow. My grandparents bought it, and then my parents took over in 1978, and my brother and I took over in 2010. So we're in well into the third generation now, and it's a hotel. We've got a lovely two rosette restaurant, and also we've got a kind of cool TP pizza and tapas restaurant in the gardens called Sundown, which is great. We've got glamping. We've got 6 cottages. We've got swimming pool. There's a lot going on.
Oh wow! And I can imagine, as you say, with all the different aspects you've got going in there, and all those different parts, that you probably need a lot of staff, different people with different traits doing different roles. So what kind of staff roles do you have, say, to facilitate all the different things that you do there?
Yeah, you're right. It is a really broad spectrum. So we have kitchen staff, we have front of house staff, we have duty managers, office staff, and we have housekeepers, and we have maintenance staff. Most of the admin I do, the business admin I do, and marketing, but we also, to a certain respect, employ staff to help with marketing as well. So it's a really big spectrum, yeah.
And so just to delve into that a little bit, obviously, as you said, with all the different things going on, I can imagine that, say, a member of your front of house staff probably needs some different skills to say, as someone you employ to consult on marketing, if you see what I mean. So if you had to sort of pick a couple of examples of maybe some staff members within the hotel and the sort of different skills they use on a daily basis, and how they contrast, what roles might you sort of choose there, and what different skills they demonstrate?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's a good example, actually, front of house staff. So they need to be calm and presentable and confident speaking to guests, and they need to just have this manner that there's not ever a problem, and yeah, of course we can sort out anything like this. So their main skill is communication and attention to detail, really, as well. And a completely other end of that spectrum, some of our office staff don't have to in any way don't have to have that. They could have almost very low level of, they need good communication skills, but it may be that their communication skills are more through emails or more on the phone, but not necessarily in front of people face to face, this sort of thing. But their attention to detail needs to be really good, and they need to be very good at just picking up the little things and just keeping an eye on all sort of little differences. The way we take bookings is really complex. Because there's so many different ways of booking nowadays. So you've got your online bookings, you've got your bookings through different online travel agencies, you've got phone bookings. We work with Red Letter Days, which is a different platform. We work with Virgin, which is a different platform. So there's so many different ways of taking bookings, and our duty managers and office admin staff really need to be on top of all these little different things.
No, that's brilliant and really interesting. As I say, sort of, I didn't even think about, as I say, certain avenues you've said there, like Red Letter Days, and I say these kind of avenues. I wouldn't think they were, something you'd have to deal with. But of course, when you explain like that, it makes sense. And you touched, as you say, on the different sort of experience, I guess, that's required within certain roles within a hotel. If you were looking at, say, at the CVs of people who were applying, for different roles, in the hotel. Obviously, you'll be looking for certain experiences, maybe designated for different roles. But if you were looking for certain character traits, bits of people's personalities that you think, okay, that would make you a good fit here, or is sort of in this industry, what kind of things would you be looking for?
So personally, I don't do huge amounts looking at CVs, but when I do, and it's normally for the senior roles, when I do, I look at experience. It's only really chefs that we look for qualifications for senior chefs. For everyone else, it's all about experience. And then it's very much about whether you think this person fits. So often that is down to an interview and gauging, face to face, gauging people and seeing if they're a good fit, more than what is written on a on a piece of paper or an email about their on a CV. So the CV is often down to experience. That's the things we're looking at, and then when we get them in, it's really, are you going to fit with us? Because there's a lot of, in this industry, you can teach a lot of people a lot of stuff fairly quickly, and you can progress quite quickly, and no two restaurants or no two hotels are the same and do things the same way exactly. So you're going to have to learn anyway. So you can always teach people to do things differently or do things better, but the personality is what you really need.
And when you talk about personality, I know, as you said, that you don't do as much look at the CVs, but I say you know the sort of hotel, the atmosphere, the people there, sort of, and you say that you need to see if they fit. What kind of personality is that person having if they fit? If you see what I mean, are they really positive? Are they hardworking? Is they sort of what would make someone fit in at the Grove?
So. It's a good question, and we don't actively pursue this, but as I said at the beginning, it's a family business, and if you walk into the Grove, and a lot of our guests say this, oh, it's just like coming home, it's like being in someone's home, oh, this is like a home, this is a family home. And it's great, and we get this from our staff as well, that they feel relaxed here. I mean, we often employ mothers and daughters or fathers and daughters, and it's people I went to school with that we employ, and their children who we employ, believe it or not. And I've got a housekeeper who's been with us for 20 years, and her mother and aunt worked for us 40 years ago. Wow. So there's a lot of, the whole thing about it is we do feel very much like a family. A lot of our staff, we know them very well. We feel very much like a family, and it's about that ethos really, and it's about the ethos of, this is a place where you can relax and you can enjoy yourself, and we mean that for staff as well as guests. The whole thing is, you can come in here and it's not a stressful environment, it's a relaxing environment, and it's an enjoyable environment, and they're the two things that we try and we try and get a connection with. If someone comes in, they're so professional that everything has to be bang, 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 then that might be brilliant for other places, but that doesn't work for us.
No, that's a really nice insight there, and I mean, I can't imagine anything better, say, than from a hotel, is to than to make it feel like home, as you say there. And that's really interesting. And one thing we're sort of trying to do with these chats is to give sort of people a real insight into sort of the rewards and challenges of working within specific roles. And and I know, as you say, there's lots of different roles within the Groves. It's probably difficult to say this, but I can imagine that sort of the challenging times are, speaking to someone who worked briefly in the hotel industry, are maybe the hours leading up to a Friday or Saturday check-in, or, you know, as I say before, as I say, Sunday lunch, or those kind of things. So if you had to sort of pluck some examples of, you know, some of the challenges that staff might face within, you know, work at the Grove, and then some of the rewards they may receive, whether that's, you know, just how they interact with customers, or whether that's, you know, what it is, sort of, what ones would you sort of talk about?
Yeah. Okay. So, as you say, there are. We're fairly seasonal. So this is our low season at the moment. I mean, it's, you know, we get the odd Christmas party and things like this, or Christmas night. We had comedy nights last night. So there are nights when we're really busy, but generally this is a low. Midweek in December is pretty low, and middle of August is intense, you know, and it is non-stop. And for example, the phone won't stop ringing, and there's a stream of people wanting your attention, and you know, lots and lots of things going on. So they're the times that it is probably most challenging, and you know, there are easy times as well, and most rewarding. We do, you know, we work in a highly reviewed, highly transparent industry. You know, a lot of industries are just kind of waking up to reviews, online reviews, and how important they can be in, for example, a building trade. We've had it in the hotel trade for, you know, decades now, with TripAdvisor, etc. We must get, often in the summer, we get about 100 plus reviews a week online for different things, and we get huge praise for that, and we also get criticism, and that's just the way we are, the industry we're in. And you know, so the staff will get massive slaps on the back. You know, it's so lovely when everyone says everything you're doing here is wonderful. I've had such a wonderful time, and the food's brilliant, the rooms are brilliant, you know, and the service is great, and you know, and the staff hear that and get that, and it's lovely. On the back of that, we can get publicly criticised, and that can be really harsh. If a member of staff is publicly criticised, we really always fight back. And if you look down the history of our TripAdvisor reviews, you'll see that, you know, because we find it unacceptable. You know, you wouldn't publicly criticise a teacher or whatever. You know, there's only MPs who I think really kind of deserve it, but you wouldn't do it in any other place. But you do get that, and that can be quite hard.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense, and it probably indicates that your staff actually need almost that extra level of resilience, because, as you say, they could have a day where maybe they are absolutely complimented in service, or, you know, and they can go back and, you know, they can see the reviews online which reflect that. But as I say, if they go back thinking like, oh, maybe I didn't have the best day today, you know, it's there still after they finish, if you see what I mean. And, you know, so as you say, they probably need that extra level of resilience to, you know, to be prepared for those reviews. And you're completely right. You know, as I say, no other industry really gets reviewed to that extent.
No. And we started working with a project called the Burnt Chef Project about 18 months ago, and they do particularly mental health advice, but lots of advice specifically for the hospitality industry. And they produce some really good material, for example, an end of service checklist, which are things like, think about the compliments you've had today. Just have a look at your colleague. Is he all right? Has he done well? So tell him he's done well. You know, all this, you know, just 5 things to do before you go home. Turn off your WhatsApp groups, so you're not going to be bombarded with messages throughout the night. And that's works pretty well.
Yeah, no, I can understand it completely. And I've worked in hospitality and sort of in my life for, you know, a good few years and stuff. And, you know, when you have a great service or something, you know, you all feel brilliant part of a team. You feel up on cloud number 9. There's no worries at all. But yeah, I could definitely have experienced how it's gone the other way as well. So I could definitely see that, partnering with a project like that would be, really beneficial to your employees. And sort of moving on from that, you touched on this a little bit earlier. You talked about sort of ways employees can progress. So again, I don't know if you've got because you're talking about such a large pool of staff, I don't know if you've got a particular example maybe of as you say, maybe someone who's come in and maybe they've started as maybe say they started as, I don't know, the kitchen porter, and maybe they've worked their way up to a chef, or maybe they've started their way, as a waiter, and they've worked their way up. So what kind of sort of progression options are there, and in what kind of different roles?
Yeah, so as a business, we always look to promote internally almost as a first option, because again, going back to what I said at the beginning, it's all about finding the fit. A lot of people will employ on qualification and sack on personality, so if we've got a fit, we can train them. The hardest bit is so there's lots and lots and lots of examples to answer your question. You've touched on one, starting washing up, coming on to low level food prep, and we've got what have we got at the moment? We've got 2 chaps who are, I suppose you'd call them CDPs. They're not qualified chefs, but they do a lot of the lower level cooking, and their next step up would be to get some qualifications in the chefing world, because there's things that we can't, we haven't got time to teach them. They need to go to an apprenticeship or whatever to do that. But they've worked their way up. We've got moved on to that, and he earns much more, doing maintenance than he does washing up, so that's good. All our duty managers started either with us or with other hotels as waitressing staff, front of house staff, and worked their way up. Front head housekeepers worked their way up. It's everywhere and it's everyone. Some of our office admin started as waitressing and then said, well, actually, I can do some of this. So it's very flexible industry, and partly because apart from the chef side of it, there aren't necessarily any really well regarded and recognized qualifications. If you do a degree in hospitality, well, that's fine, but you can be just as good if you've worked there for 5 years or whatever. So it's unless you really want to go to one of the big corporate hotels, then you're just as better with the experience as you are to get a degree in hospitality, I'd say.
No, brilliant. Thank you. That's a really useful insight. And I think it's all leads me quite nicely on to what I think will be my final question, and I'll give it to you in 2 parts, really. So you've touched a little bit about how sort of, how you sort of came into the industry, obviously with all the heavy family ties and everything like that. So the first part of the question will be, can you sort of just tell us a little bit about your career journey and sort of, how you've come to be where you are, maybe the different roles, you've had. And my second part to that question would be, taking into account the experience you've had, maybe say the mistakes you've made, the lessons you've learned, that kind of thing. If you could go back and speak to, let's say 17, 18-year-old Chris, what one piece of career advice would you give yourself based on the experiences you've had?
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So my career journey is that I grew up in the hotel, but I then got a degree. I worked as a teacher for a bit and then came back to it in about 2008-9. I started doing the admin and then took over the business 2010. Sorry, 1 second. I'm just on the recording. Sorry.
That's okay.
So that's kind of my career journey. I've done all. I'm very lucky in a way that I'm quite dogmatic, I suppose is a word. I will try and do things and work things out for myself. So it means that, for example, if I don't know anything about something, then I'll research it and I'll work out how to do it my own way. And that has taught me a lot. And one of the things it's taught me, and going back to my 17, 18-year-old self, one of the things I would say to myself is that there are some things you need an expert for, but most things you can actually do yourself or do with someone who isn't an expert just by working it out. I think that's my main advice for it.